The first time I wrote Alexander's name, I misspelled it. In my defense, nobody at court had heard it before. Why would we? The Persian Empire stretched farther than most men could imagine. A young Macedonian king winning a battle near the western coast of Asia was hardly the sort of thing that reached the center of the world. At least not immediately. I lived in Babylon, and before you ask, yes, it was every bit as magnificent as the stories claim. Perhaps more. The walls seemed endless. The markets overflowed with goods from every corner of the empire. Spices, ivory, textiles, gold, silver, languages, hundreds of languages. You could walk for an hour and hear 5 different accents, perhaps 10. The empire was not a kingdom, it was a world. I was a scribe, not an important one, not the sort of scribe whose words changed history, the sort whose words preserved it. I copied reports, recorded taxes, filed military dispatches, prepared correspondence. Boring work, unless the empire was in trouble. Then it became very interesting. Most people imagine kings as larger than life. Darius wasn't, at least not physically. He wasn't a giant, he wasn't surrounded by lightning, he didn't glow. He was a man, a very powerful man, but a man. That surprised me the first time I saw him. The King of Kings, Lord of Asia, master of the largest empire on earth. And yet he laughed, he worried, he grew tired, he asked questions. The gods had not made him different. The empire had. Court was a strange place. The farther you stood from power, the more power seemed magical. The closer you stood, the more human it became. Governors argued, generals disagreed, officials made mistakes. Reports arrived late, messages were misunderstood. The empire looked perfect from a distance. Up close, it looked remarkably similar to every other organization run by human beings. Just larger. Much larger. One morning, a courier arrived, covered in dust, exhausted. The sort of exhaustion that cannot be faked. The sort earned only by urgency. He carried reports from Asia Minor. The satraps had engaged Alexander. There had been a battle, a river called Granicus. The reports were confusing, contradictory, incomplete. That is normal after battles. The dead rarely submit paperwork. Nobody panicked. That part is important. Historians know how the story ends. We didn't. To us, Alexander had won a battle. One battle. The empire had survived rebellions, civil wars, assassinations, invasions, pretenders. One Macedonian victory was not the end of the world. Many officials assumed the problem would solve itself. Problems often do. Alexander would overextend, lose support, run out of supplies. Eventually, someone would stop him. History is full of ambitious young men. Most become forgotten old men. I spent days updating military reports. The maps changed every week. A city surrendered, another defected, a satrap retreated. A fortress opened its gates. The names moved west to east. Closer, closer, closer. Like a storm crossing the sea. One day I realized something. Every new report placed Alexander farther inside the empire. Nobody had expected that, not even the men preparing the maps. One evening, I shared wine with a courier who had seen the aftermath of Granicus. He described the battlefield, broken cavalry, dead nobles, captured Greeks. Alexander alive. That last part surprised me. Rumors had reached Babylon that he had nearly been killed. The courier nodded.
Apparently, he was.
I laughed. Either a man dies or he doesn't. The courier smiled.
Then perhaps the gods had not yet decided.
The king listened carefully. That was something people underestimated about Darius. He listened. Many rulers speak. Darius listened. Reports, advisors, generals, governors, couriers. Nobody knew exactly what Alexander intended. And that uncertainty was becoming dangerous. Because uncertainty spreads faster than armies. One afternoon, I watched the royal family walking through a garden. The queen, the children, servants, guards. A perfectly ordinary scene. The sort of scene no historian records. Yet I remember it clearly. Because I realized something. To us, Darius was the great king. To those children, he was simply father. The world always looks different depending on where you stand.
Then came the meetings. More meetings. Long meetings. The kind that begin at sunrise and somehow continue after sunset. Generals argued. Governors argued. Everyone had a plan. Everyone had certainty. The king listened, then finally spoke, and the room became silent. The decision had been made. The next campaign would not be left to satraps, not to local governors, not to subordinate commanders. The king himself would lead the army. That night I prepared documents until my hand hurt. Orders, requests, inventories, military dispatches, thousands of details. Empires are strange. History remembers the king, but the king travels because someone counted the horses, someone recorded the grain, someone prepared the wagons, someone wrote the orders. Most victories begin with paperwork. Nobody likes admitting that. The city slept, or tried to. I remained awake, finishing one final letter. A routine task, one of thousands. The seal was already prepared, the order already written, the decision already made. The great king would lead the next campaign himself. Until that moment, Alexander had been a report, a rumor, a nuisance, a name. Now he was something else. Now he was important enough to summon a king. And somewhere to the west, a young conqueror was marching deeper into Asia, confident, victorious, unstoppable. Or so he believed. The two men had never met, never spoken, never seen one another. Yet every road in the empire was already leading them toward the same place. The great king was coming, and for the first time, Alexander would face not a satrap, not a governor, not a local army, but Persia itself.